Okay, so welcome again. So I will share my screen and I will turn off my video. Okay. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. So today we will start with chapter 5. Okay. So chapter 5 will be a complementary chapter for chapter 2 and chapter 4. Okay, so it will be very related to chapter 2 and chapter 4. Okay, so remember what we have done in chapter 2. We work on the demands, and for in chapter 4 we work on the consumer choice. Okay, so since the demand was the very initial chapter that we have seen, okay, so you may wonder, so how we get this demand equation. Okay, so the demand equation was a function of, okay, so let's say let's note it by D as a function of the prices of the goods, okay, and your income. And in the consumer choice, okay, so we were given a utility function, okay, with two goods here, and these goods have prices, and then you have the budget constraint, and you were solving this maximization problem here, okay, and our objective was finding this Q1 and Q2 which maximize the utility. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, there is a direct relation between the demand, okay, for a good, okay, and the utility maximization. Okay, so what we will do first in this chapter is basically we will derive demand function by using consumer choice. Okay, that's to say, okay, so the demand will be a function of the prices of its own, okay, and the price of the other good and your income. Okay, and we will relate it with the utility maximizing quantity that we find from the utility maximization. So let's start with an example. Okay, so we will go over two examples that you know of the two utility functions. Okay, and they will be very explanatory. Okay, first example that we will work on, the utility function is Cobb-Douglas utility function. Okay, so this is Cobb-Douglas utility function. And what is important about this utility function is basically that the indifference curves are smooth, which means that, okay, we can use MRS is equal to the negative ratio of the price of good 1 and good 2. Okay, and this comes from the fact that so whenever we draw our indifference curves, okay, and when we have the budget line here, okay, so the slope at this point is minus P1 over P2. Since the indifference curve is smooth, okay, we have also slope here. Okay, we can take the derivatives here, and which is MRS. Okay. So let's say that our prices of good 1 is P1 and the price of good 2 is P2 and our income is given as Y. Okay. Here our objective is we would like to derive the demand for good 1. Okay. And remember, so I would like to write it as a function of price of good 1, price of good 2 and the income. Şimdi demand'i tanımlarken biz ne diyorduk? Belirli bir fiyatlar verildiğinde ben ne kadar tüketmek istiyorum. Onu buluyorduk. Hani income'ınız, diğer bütün her şeyiniz sabitken, diğer ürünün fiyatı sabitken benim price'ım P1 iken ben ne kadar tüketirim? P1'den biraz daha artırdığımda ne kadar tüketirim? Şimdi oradaki ne kadar tükettiğiniz aslında sizin buradaki utility maximization'ınızdan geliyor. Hani havadan gelmiyor bu. So if you remember what we were talking about demand is the how much you would like to buy of a good, okay, for a given price, okay, where the price of the other goods and your income is fixed. Here, your answer is in fact coming from the utility maximization. And we will do this utility maximization, okay, with using these parameters. Okay, so what do I mean here? We don't have the exact values of P1, P2, and Y, but our solution will be very flexible in the following way. For any price and for any income, it will give us the exact amount of the good that we demand. Okay, so let's start. So the first thing that we do for this kind of the utility maximization is we equalize MRS to the ratio of the prices. Okay, so what is MRS here? It is negative ratio of the marginal utility of good 1 divided by marginal utility of good 2. And the marginal utility of good 1 is du over dq1 divided by du over dq2. If I take the derivative of this function, okay, what is du over dq1? It is a times alpha times q1 alpha minus 1 q2 1 minus alpha. What is the derivative with respect to q2? It is a times 1 minus alpha times q1 to the alpha times q2 minus alpha. So if I plug in those values here, I have negative sign here, a alpha q1 alpha minus 1 q2 1 minus alpha. A 1 minus alpha q1 alpha times q2 minus alpha. Okay, so if we do the math here, so we can cancel out these guys. So we have negative sign here, alpha over 1 minus alpha. I can take the term with q2 to the, sorry, I can take this term with q2 to the numerator upside, okay, and I can take this term with q1 to the denominator to the down, and I will have q2 over q1. Okay, and I'm just equalizing it to, so this is the MRS. I'm equalizing it to the ratio to the prices. Okay, so minus alpha over 1 minus alpha q2 over q1. Okay, then if I do the math here, p1 over p2 is equal to alpha 1 minus alpha q2 over q1. And if I want to leave q1 alone, okay, which is the demand for q1, I have the following: alpha 1 minus alpha q2 times p2 over p1. Okay, so I got a relation for Q1 in terms of the alphas, okay, which are the parameters in the utility function, Q2, and the prices. Okay, so then my question is this the demand function? Bu bizim aradığımız demand fonksiyonu mu? Evet, hayır. Cevap verin. Is this the demand function that we are looking for? Hadi biraz ses verin, bir duyalım sesinizi. Okay. The answer is not 100% yes. Okay. So because if you look at the demand function here, okay, so we want to write Q1 in terms of P1, P2, and income. But here we have the term Q2. So which means that we would like to get rid of Q2, okay? So almost, okay? So this is the demand function that we are looking for almost. But it includes Q2, okay? And we would like to get rid of Q2 here. And how do we do it? Is actually so we can just here we can write Q2 in terms of P1 over P2 times 1 minus alpha over alpha times Q1, okay? Then we plug this budget constraint. Okay, so what is our budget constraint? P1 Q1 plus P2 Q2 is equal to Y. So instead of Q2, I will plug in this equation. Okay, so this equation will be plugged instead of Q2 here. Then I have P1 Q1 plus P2 times P1 over P2 1 minus alpha times Q1 is equal to Y. Okay. Then what I have here is, so P2 will cancel out. Then I have here is Q1 P1 plus Q1 times P1 1 minus alpha over alpha is equal to Y. If I take it into Q1 parentheses, okay, Q1 P1 plus P1. Okay, so let's take it into P1 Q1 parentheses. Okay, 1 plus 1 minus alpha over alpha is equal to Y. And if I do the math here, okay, Q1 Q1 alpha plus 1 minus alpha over alpha is equal to Y, and Q1 Q1 1 over alpha is equal to Y. Okay, then I will leave Q1 alone. Okay, Q1 is equal to, I'm taking all the other terms to the right hand side, Y over P1 times alpha. Okay, now this is the demand function. Okay, demand function for good 1. Okay. So what do we observe here? Okay, so if we have of Douglas utility function, demand for good 1 only depends on income and its own price. Bunu görebiliyor musunuz? So which means that, okay, if P2 changes, it doesn't affect Q1. Okay, so since there is no P2, so there is no P2 here. Okay, so there is no P2 here, so which means that the effect of good 2, there is no effect of the price of good 2 on good 1. And if you do the same thing for good 2, you can derive the demand function for good 2 as symmetric of this one. Okay, it will be the y over P2 times 1 minus alpha. Okay, so if you would like to draw this demand curve, okay, so we would like to draw the demand curve for y over P2 P1 times alpha. Here Q1, here P1. Okay, so remember, the demand curve is the relation between the price of good 1 and the quantity demanded for good 1. So it will be something like this smooth curve. Okay, it is a downward sloping smooth curve. Okay, so since we don't have y in the demand curve, okay, so which means that as T1 increases, okay, so it converts to like this to 0 and like this. Okay, then we have this. Any questions so far? No question. Okay, so let's do another extreme here. Okay, so another example that we will derive the demand curve from the consumer choice is the perfect substitution. Okay, so let me remind you, so what we mean by the perfect substitutes. Okay, so our utility function is a times q1 plus b times q2. Here a and b are some constants. So those are just coefficients. And our budget constraints will be the same again. P1 Q1 plus P2 Q2 is equal to our income. Okay. So before solving before deriving the demand function here for Q1, okay, so let's think about how the indifference curves are. Okay, so here the indifference curves will be straight lines. Okay, something like this. So these light blues are the indifference curves. What we know about these indifference curves is the slope is equal to minus a over b. Okay, so here good 1, here good 2. Okay, so you can find the slope from MRS. Okay, and the important point here is for all points on this indifference curve, okay, we have exactly the same slope here, okay, minus A over B. Then when we want to find the optimum point, okay, so what we do is, in fact, so we compare the slopes of budget constraint and indifference curve. So what is the slope of the budget constraint? So let's say this is our budget constraint, this green one. So let's say this is our budget constraint. What is the slope for the budget constraint? Hadi biliyoruz bunu. Yes, that's right. Okay, so it is minus P1 over P2. So if you forget about it, okay, so it is just, this is Y over P1, this is Y over P2. And when you are looking for the budget, the slope of the budget constraint with minus sign, okay, the karşı kenar bölü komşu kenar. Okay, so we are just looking for the tangent. So from my drawing, okay, so what we have here is basically for this drawing, specific to this drawing, okay, budget constraint is flatter than indifference curve. Okay, so which corresponds to the following case. Okay, in absolute value, okay, MRS, which is minus A over B, is greater than, in absolute value, minus P over P2. Okay, so this case corresponds to the where the budget constraint is flatter than the indifference curve. Then in this case, okay, without knowing anything about the margin rate of substitution and these price ratios, okay, which point will be the optimum point? Okay, so let's look at this graph. Okay, so let's look at the graph. What will be the optimum point here? How can I find the optimum point? Can this be the optimum point, okay, where I all consume good 2? Bütün income'ımı good 2'ya yatırdığım nokta optimum point olabilir mi bu drawing'e göre? So let's think about it. Okay, so in some cases it is possible. Okay, but let's think about this following case. Okay, this specific case. So this point, okay, so there is an indifference curve which intersect with this point, okay, where I only consume good 2, and I am having this much utility, but I can't achieve this much utility, okay, because it is still on the budget constraint. Moreover, I can achieve this much utility, okay, so I am becoming happier, okay, so if I move away from the origin, the higher the upper the indifference curve, the happier I am, okay, and I can still achieve higher utilities here, okay. So for example, there is another indifference curve here, and I can achieve higher utility, okay. And if I continue drawing my indifference curves, okay, I can still be on the budget constraint up until this point, okay. So this will be my optimum. Okay. Then what is the optimum point? So when we have flatter budget constraint compared to indifference curve, I only consume good fund. Okay, so I'm all using my money on good fund. And can we know the exact amount of good fund that I am consuming here? Q1 will be, so if my budget constraint is flatter than my indifference curve, then my Q1 will be equal to, okay, so you know it, so it's on the graph. Y over P1. That's right. Okay. So let's think about just the opposite case. Okay. So where my budget constraint is steeper than indifference curve. So this corresponds to the case where my margin rate of substitution, okay, the slope of the indifference curve is less than the slope of the budget constraint, which is P1 over P2. Okay, so in absolute values. Then let's try to draw this specific case here on the graph. So this is our graph. So let's use a light blue one for the indifference curve. Okay, so these are some of my indifference curves. And let's use this purple for the budget constraint. So what I'm requiring here is my budget constraint to be steeper. Daha dik olsun. Daha dik oldu mu mesela şöyle bir şey çizdim. Daha dik değil mi bu? So this is my budget constraint and these are my indifference curves. So what will be my optimum bundle here? Okay, so this is y over P1 and this is y over P2. Hadi bu case'de optimum point'imiz ne olur bizim? Budget constraint'imiz daha dik. Indifference curve'lerimize göre. Biraz önceki mantığın aynısını kullanacaksınız. Hadi siz ses çıkarmadıkça ben böyle duracağım. Exactly. Okay, so that's our optimum point. Okay, but which means that so this will be our optimum point. At this point, my consumption for Q1 is 0. My consumption for Q2 is Y over P2. Exactly. So which means that so since I am interested in my demand for good one, I will have good one, the demand for good one equal to 0 whenever the absolute value of the margin rate of substitution is less than the absolute value of the ratio of the price. So which corresponds to the case where the budget constraint is steeper than the indifference curve. Okay. So there is one case left, which is budget constraint and indifference curve have same slope, which is margin rate of substitution is equal to ratio of the price. Okay. For that case, so let's try to draw one last graph here. So let's say this purple one is again the budget constraint. Since I have the same slope for the indifference curve, I will just draw the parallel lines to this budget constraint. Okay, so these blue ones are my indifference curve. Okay, so in this case, what is my optimal bundle? Hiçbir zorluğu yok. En trivial cevap bu. En kolay cevap bu. Optimal bundle'ımız nedir burada? Aynen. So any point on budget line is optimal. Since the budget constraint and indifference curve coincide, okay? So any point on this budget constraint, okay, will be my optimal bundle. So which means that in this case, my demand function for Q1, okay, so my demand for Q1 can be anything between 0 and the maximum amount of good one that I can consume. It is anything. Okay. So this is how we derive, okay, the demand function for Q1 when we have perfect substitutes. So let's try to summarize it, okay. When we have perfect substitutes, okay, demand for good one is as follows, okay. So Q1 is equal to, so we have a step function here. It is equal to y over p1 if MRS is greater than the ratio of the prices. It is 0 if MRS is less than the ratio of the prices, and it is anything between it is anything between 0 and the maximum amount of coupon that I can consume if marginal rate of substitution is equal to the ratio of the prices. Sorunuz var mı bu konuda? So what we have done is very simple. So we already know how to look at the consumer choice. So we are finding the relation between the consumer choice and the demand function. In fact, the demand function, whenever I'm asking your demand, you are somewhat making your solving your optimization problem, and you are answering based on your optimization problem. And we have shown how you can derive the demand function from your consumer choice. Okay. So this is so that we showed how you can derive demand function by using consumer choice. Okay. So alternatively, you can derive demand curve graphically. Okay, and what we will do, it will be just the same thing. Okay, so we will have our indifference curves here. Okay, so let's say that we have smooth indifference curves here. Okay, so these are our indifference curves. So these purple ones are indifference curves. And what we would like to do is basically, we would like to trace out optimal bundle for good one when the price of good one changes. So remember, okay, so the demand is the function of quantity demanded, okay, with respect to the price of its own. And what we will do is basically here is, so for a given price level, okay, so let's say that this is our given price level. Then we will basically draw, okay, different price levels here. Okay, so I'm keeping to the price of good 2 ticks. Okay, so this is good 2. This is good 1. I am fixing to the price of good 2. Okay, and I am changing the price of good 1. So if I increase the price of good 1, I need to draw a steeper budget line. Okay, if I increase if I decrease the price of good 1, then I need to draw a flatter budget line. Okay, and suppose that if I decrease the price of good 1 further, then I need to draw flatter indifference curve here. Okay, so what I'm doing is basically I am finding the optimal bundles, okay, with respect to these different price levels. So this is the optimal bundle 1, okay, so let's say x1, this is x2, this is x3, and this is x4. Okay. Then I can connect those bundles. Let me use orange one here. Okay, so I can connect those bundles here. Okay, and we call this as price consumption drop. And how does this relate to the demand function for good one? Okay, so basically what we are doing is, so let's say that this green one is at P11, this blue one is at P12, this yellow one is at P13, and this dark blue one is at P14. So what we know here is P14 is less than P13, is less than P12, is less than P11. So by using this optimization graph, okay, I would like to draw, this is Q1, relation between the price of good 1 and the demand for the relation between the P1 and the demand for good one. So I'm just pointing the corresponding prices that I have talked here. This is P14, this is P13, this is P12, and this is P11. And the rest is simple. Okay, so I'm just looking for the image of this point here. Okay, so this is x1 point. The image of x2 is here. This is x2. The image for x3 is here. This is x3. And this is the image for x4 here. This is x4. So my demand curve for good one will be the curve that I connect those points. This is demand curve for good one. Sorunuz var mı burada? So what we have done is basically, so first we use the consumer choice. Okay, so we have the utility function. So we derive the optimum bundle from there, and so we turn it to the demand function. Here by using the graph, so where I know the optimum choice are the intersection of the tangency points of the budget constraints and the different indifference curves. Here, by changing to the price of good one, I am looking for different levels of the prices for good one. I am fixing to the price of good two here. And then I am just looking for which points are the optimum points. So I'm just checking the tangency points here. And by using those optimum points, I'm just looking for the images of those points on the demand curve. That's that simple. Sorusu olan var mı? No question. So, next, we will look at the effects of an increase in income. Okay. So, an increase in an individual's income holding taste and prices constant, we learned that it causes a shift of demand curve. Okay, so in chapter 2, for simplicity, what we said that, okay, so if this is our demand curve, this is Q1, this is price of good one, and if our income increases, then we said that our demand for a given price will increase. Okay, so it will cause a shift to upward shift. Okay, so orijinden daha da uzaklaşıyoruz. Demand curve'ümüz daha da yukarıya gidiyor eğer income'ımız artarsa. So this was what we said in chapter 2. Okay, but it may have different effects here. Okay, for example, so if you get richer and richer, there may be some goods, okay, that you don't want to consume anymore, or you want to decrease your consumption. So you can just think about that. So if you become richer and richer, then let's say that so the the num the number of days that you want to spend your vacations in Turkey will decrease. Okay, you want to go to other place for your vacation. Yeah. So basically, so what we say here is an increase in income causes an increase in demand, so which is shift away from origin if the good is normal. But an increase in income causes a decrease in demand, so which means that there is a shift towards to origin if the good is inferior. Okay, so which means that so we divide goods into two. Okay, so if income increases, if your demand for good is negatively affected, then we call that good as inferior. And if your demand for a good increases as your income increases, then we call that good as normal. So you can think of different inferior goods, okay, so and normal goods here. So we can use three different ways to show the relation between optimal choice and income. Okay, you can think about this as demand. The first one is called the income consumption curve. And it's actually shows how consumption of both goods changes when income changes. Okay, so we show it on a graph here while prices held constant. So we can show this income consumption curve on the consumer choice graph. Okay, so if we have this consumer choice graph here, so suppose that we have this smooth indifference curve. So this is good 1 and this is good 2. So what we do is basically, so suppose that our income level is corresponding to this orange line first. Okay, so let's say that this is Y1 or corresponding to income level first. And suppose that we have this purple one, so which is basically the case where our income increases. Okay, so here Y3 is greater than Y2 is greater than Y1. So remember, we are keeping the prices constant here. Okay, we are just changing the income, and let's say that we have another one here. the green one, and this is the last one, white. So we have three different optimum bundles for three different incomes, and here the definition is basically saying that. So I just want to draw a curve, okay, so which I find the optimum bundles for different income levels, which is to say I'm just connecting those optimum bundles. So this is income consumption. Buradaki ilişki dikkat ederseniz bir önceki yaptığımıza çok benziyor. Burada price consumption curve'da ne yapıyorduk? So we were fixing the income and the level of the price for the other goods. I'm just trying to look at how my optimum choices changes. Okay, so when I change the price of good one, and the change in the price of good one just tilt the budget line. Sadece good 2'deki yeri fixlenmiş şekilde sağa ya da sola biraz oynamasını sebep olur good one'ın price'ını değiştirdiğimizde. Then I am just finding the optimal bundle for corresponding to different levels of the price. Here, I'm interested in the relation between the optimum bundles and the income, which means that I need to keep the price of the prices constant, and I'm just changing the income. So changing the income causes the shift on the budget line. So the higher the income, the outer the budget line. Then I'm just looking at the optimum bundles for different levels of incomes. And I'm just connecting. Nothing fancy. Sorunuz var mı? No question. The second way is looking in the shifts in the demand curve. Okay, so when I change my income, so it will shift the demand curve, as we have discussed just in a minute earlier. Okay, so if the good is inferior good, then the shift will be towards to the origin. This is the origin. If the good is normal good, then it will be away from the origin. So it is simpler using demand diagram. We can show how quantity demanded increases or decreases, of course, as the income changes, where prices are kept constant. Okay, so this is the second way, and the third way is called angle curve. And it basically shows the relationship between quantity demanded of a single good and income, where holding prices constant. Okay, so it basically tells you that, okay, you need to draw the angle curve where you have good one here, Q1 here. Now we are interested in the change in the income. So suppose that good one is normal good. What will be the shape of the angle curve? Is it upward sloping? It is downward sloping. Hadi buraya cevaplayalım. İlk saatimizi bitirelim. It will be upward slope. Okay, so since it is normal good, so which means that as income increases, okay, as income increases, Q1 will increase. Okay, so and if we have zero income, we cannot consume anything. So this will be angle. Okay. So instead, so let's do one more example, okay, before we leave for the break, okay. So let's try to derive the angle curve for the Cobb-Douglas function, okay, Cobb-Douglas function. So let's say that our utility is given as Q1 Q2 0.4, and we would like to derive angle curve, angle curve for good one. Okay, so but it tells us that, okay, so write down the good one as a function of income. In fact, so we have already did this. So when we were deriving the demand curve for a good one. So let's try to do it again. So this is Cobb-Douglas. And what we know about Cobb-Douglas is margin rate of substitution is equal to the ratio of the prices. What will be the margin rate of substitution here? So if I do the derivatives, I will get minus sign 0.6 times Q2 over 0.4 times Q1. Okay, so this is marginal rate of substitution. So if I do the math here, it will be minus 3 over 2 Q2 over Q1. Then it will be equal to the ratio of the prices with minus sign. Then what I have here is Q2 is equal to P1 over P2 times 2 over 3 times Q1. If I plug this value to the budget constraint, then I have, I'm just plugging this value to here, P1 times Q1 plus P2 times P1 over P2 times 2 over 3 times Q1 is equal to Y, and P2 will cancel each other here, and P1, Q1 in parentheses 1 plus 2 over 3 is equal to Y, and Q1 is equal to 3 over 5 times Y over P1. Okay, so this is the equation for the demand function. Okay, it's also the equation for the angle curve. The only difference here from the demand function is basically, so, or the demand curve, So I want to draw this, okay, the angle curve, which is the relation between income and quantity 1. Here P1 is constant, and what I am drawing a linear curve here, okay? It will be something like that. This is the angle curve. Any questions? Sorunuz var mı? Sorunuz yoksa o zaman bir 10 dakika ara verelim. So let's give a 10 minutes break, okay? And we will meet at 6:55, okay? 55 geçe buluşalım. So what we have done at the end of the first class is basically, so we derived the Engel curve. Okay, so we explained the Engel curve is the relation between the quantity demanded and income. So here price is kept constant. And if you would like to draw the Engel curve corresponding to the co-Douglas utility function, so you will have a straight line here, because of the whatever we have here in front of y is this term is constant. Okay. So now we will continue with the relation with the consumer choice and income elasticities. So in chapter 3, so we have defined the income elasticity as percentage change in quantity demanded and percentage change in income. Okay, so if you would like to write it in terms of derivatives, it is dq over dy times whatever the income level that you are looking and the corresponding quantity level. So the value of this income elasticity changes, so whether the good is normal or inferior. And so we have also the other type of good or other type of the normal goods that I will explain in a second. Basically, so if the good is normal, so which means that as income increases, your quantity demanded will increase, then your income elasticity is positive or negative. Eğer normal bir good'umuz varsa income elasticimiz pozitif midir, negatif midir? It's always positive, right? So where do we know it? Here, this will be, since the quantity demand increase between income, so this will be positive, okay? And since this term is also positive, so our income elasticity for normal goods will be positive. So we divide the normal goods into two parts. The first one is the luxury goods. And what we are saying is a luxury good is the ones which have income elasticity greater than 1, and we have necessity goods, and they have income elasticity less than or equal to 1. Okay, of course, between 0 and 1. The other type of the good that we have studied in the first class is the inferior goods. And what we have said for the inferior good is when the income increases, the quantity demanded decreases. And what will be the income elasticity here? So remember the income elasticity is the derivative with respect to income times y over q. So this term is positive, and this term for the inferior goods, is it positive or negative? So what's the derivative of the quantity demanded with respect to income for the inferior goods? It is always negative. So this is negative. The product of negative number and the positive number will be always negative. Okay. So if you remember, so in the first class, so we draw the income consumption goods, consumption curve, and basically so it is showing the optimal bundles when income changes. Okay, so we would like to draw this income consumption curve when good 1 and good 2 are normal goods. So what will be the shape of the income consumption curve when good 1 and good 2 are the normal goods? Okay, so let's say that this is our indifference curve, our initial indifference curve. This is our budget line, okay? And this point is our initial optimal point. Then I change the income, so I increase my income, so which becomes this dashed line. Income increases. Since both goods are normal goods, okay, so what will be the effect of this income change on my optimum bundle for good 1? So do I increase my consumption for good 1 or decrease my consumption for good 1? Good 2. Income artıyor. Good 1 normal good. O zaman benim consumption'ım ne olur good 1'dan? Artar değil mi? So which means that I will go in this direction for my consumption for good 1. Since good 2 is also normal good, my consumption for good 2 will also increase. Okay, so I will go in this path. So which means that my optimal bundle will be somewhere here. Okay, so this will be my income consumption curve. So when both goods are normal. Her iki ürünümüz de normalse yani income'la birlikte ikisinin de consumption'ımız artıyorsa, then income level'ım arttığında, yani when my budget line shifts away from the origin, then my consumption for both good will increase. So which means that I will have a upward sloping income consumption curve. So let's think about another case here. So good one is normal, but good two is inferior. We are also looking for the effect of the change in income here. So let's say that this is our initial budget line. So this is our indifference curve, initial indifference curve. Then this is our initial optimal bundle. Suppose that my income increases. Now I have this new budget line. So since good one is normal, my consumption for good one increase or decrease. Artar mı benim consumption'ım good one için? It will increase. Herkes bunu görebiliyor mu? Ses gelmiyor. Görebiliyor diye assume ediyoruz. What about my consumption for good two? Since it is inferior, so which means that the effect of the increase in income will be just on the opposite direction. So which means that it will decrease. So then what is my direction here? So my consumption for good one will increase, but my consumption for good two will decrease. Then my income consumption curve will be something downward sloping here. Okay, so this orange line is my income consumption curve. Bir sorunuz var mı? Burada sadece biz inferior olup olmaması, normal good olup olmaması ile ilgili conclusion'lara varıyoruz. Yani buradaki income değiştiğindeki bizim consumption'daki, optimal bundle'ımızdaki değişime bakıyoruz. So what we are doing here is we are looking for the effect of the change on income on my optimal bundle, and that will change whether the goods are inferior or normal goods. If it is normal good, then my consumption will increase, my optimal bundle for that good will increase. But if it is inferior good, then the effect will be just the opposite. Bir sorunuz yoksa önemli bir konuya başlayacağız. Hani buraya birazcık dikkatinizi verin. So if you don't have any questions, so we will start with an important topic. So which you will definitely have a question on final exam, and it is called the. Please be very careful about this, and please let me know if you have any questions during this part of the class. Okay, we are now looking for the effects of price change. Okay, so without starting our analysis, okay, for this part. So let's go over what we have learned before. Okay, so I will repeat it again, but you will see the relation once we start talking about the effects of price change. So our objective here is finding the optimal bundle. Our objective here is finding optimal bundle given prices and income. Graphically, what we are doing is we have a budget line and we have a indifference curve here. Okay, so which is tangent to the budget line. So this is good 1, this is good 2. This is Q1, this is Q2. Okay, so in order to mention that they are optimal, I'm using Q1 star and Q2 star. Suppose that price of put 1 decreases. Okay, so that is to say, now I have an budget line. Okay, I will draw it by purple. Okay, so it will be the purple budget line. That the price of good 2 is kept the same. The only thing here is I am drawing a flatter budget line. Okay, the reason is that the price of good 1 has changed. Okay, has decreased. Burada good 1'ın price'ı düştüğünden dolayı eğer burada mesela diyelim ki it was initially P1, then it decreases to P1 prime. So this is Y over P1, but now it decreases to Y over P1 prime. Here P1 prime is less than P1. So we are keeping the price of good 2 the same. Good 2'nun price'ı burada hiç değişmiyor. Bir düşünelim burada. Let's think about it. What will be my optimum band? Okay, what will be the change? What will be the effect of this change in the price? What will be the effect of this decrease in price of good 1 on my optimum band? Hadi konuşalım birazcık. Hani siz birazcık kafa yürütelim buradan. Mikrofonunuzu açarak da konuşabilirsiniz. Yazmanıza gerek yok. Bu price change'inden sonra benim good 1 consumption'ım ne olur? What will happen to my good 1 consumption after this price change?
Increases?
It will increase, right? So even if you don't know anything about the consumer choice, the law of demand is telling us that as the price of one good decreases, my demand for that good will increase. So why do we have, okay, so this change will result in increase demand for good 1. So why? So there are two reasons. Relatively, good 1 is cheaper. Buradaki iki tane bizim efektimiz var. Okay. İlk efektimiz burada. Şimdi P2'nin fiyatını aynı tutuyoruz ya her iki durumda da. Şimdi relative price olarak diyelim ki bu en başta 10'du, bu da 10'du. Sonra 5'e düşüyor. Buradaki relative price efektimiz bizim good 1'ı cheaper yapıyor. Değil mi? So since we are keeping the price of good 2 the same, whenever I decrease the price of good 1 compared to the initial price ratios, now good 1 becomes cheaper, relatively cheaper. Since it becomes relatively cheaper, I would like to consume more of that good. Is there a change in my income here? Burada benim income'ımda bir değişiklik oluyor mu? So there is no change in the income. But if I think about my purchasing power, okay? So what do I mean by the purchasing power? Okay, the bundles that I can afford here. So initially, the bundles that I can afford are the ones below this green budget line. Now, the bundles that I can afford is this the bundles under this purple budget line. Forget about the change in the income, so the change in the price. So somewhat, now I can afford more bundles. Benim burada sanki hani opportunity setim büyümüş oldu. Tamam mı? So buradaki opportunity setinin büyümüş olduğunu biz şu şekilde anlatıyoruz. My purchasing power increases. Even the exact amount of money that I have does not change. Income'um burada benim hiç değişmiyor. Fakat hani relatively olarak daha kendimi zengin hissedebiliyorum. I feel richer. So I need to just give a second break. Okay, so I will be just take. Sorry for the break. Okay, so here we have two different effects of the change in the price. Okay, the decrease in the price. The first one is basically relatively our good one becomes cheaper, and my purchasing power increases. Okay, so because I feel rich. So we are basically so the component. So we decompose the net effect of this price change into two. The first one will come from the income, and the second one will come from the substitution. Okay, and I will explain it in detail in a few seconds. Okay, and then the net effect is basically so here there will be another indifference curve. Okay, so which intersects with this new budget line. So then the amount of good one that I am consuming, okay, is increases to Q1 prime, okay, and the net effect of this price change will be this difference. Bizim buradaki hani bu topik'i hiç bilmiyor olsanız bile net efekti biz sorduğumuzda hani buradaki price change net efekti ne diye sorduğumuzda bizim yaptığımız şey çok basit. İlk İlk price'e göre optimal bundle buluyoruz. Q1 star. Sonra ikinci price'e göre optimal bundle buluyoruz. Burada Q1 tilde. Buradaki bizim net efektimiz bizim Q1 tilde ile Q1 star arasındaki fark. Şimdi ben bu net efektin ne kadarı relatif olarak benim ürünüm cheaper oldu, substitution'dan dolayı ona bakacağım. Bir de benim purchasing power'ım, benim income, hani relative income'ım arttığından dolayı ne kadar fazla good one'dan tüketiyorum. Ona bakacağım. So that is important that we are not interested in the change of good to consumption. Here we only care about the change in the good one consumption. Okay, whichever the price changes, okay, increase or decreases, we are just looking for the effect of this change on the price on the consumption of that specific good. Tamam mı? Let me explain, okay, so what we mean by the substitution effect and what we mean by the income effect. And then once I give you the definitions, so we will follow that definition and we will basically point out to the exact substitution effect and income effect just based on those definitions. So the substitution effect is defined as follows. The change in the quantity of a good that consumer demands when the goods price changes holding other prices, and this part is important, and consumers utility constant. So what do we mean here? Okay, so we are looking for the effect of this change in the prices, but what we would like to do is basically we would like to keep the consumer's utility constant. So let's try to understand so what we mean on the graph. Okay, I will redraw it. So let's say that initial good one, good two, initial price. Let's say that this is P1, this is P2. Then the final, okay, there's a change in the price. Final price is P1 prime, and we keep the price of good two constant. Okay. So then what will be the effect of those price changes? Suppose that P1 prime is less than P1. So we are decreasing the price. This is the initial budget line. Here Y over P1, here Y over P2. Then I decrease the price of good one. This is Y over P1 prime. Okay, so the budget line becomes flatter. So this is good one, this is good two. I have indifference curves here. This is my indifference curve, which is intersecting, which is tangent with the initial budget line. So this is Q1 and Q2. Okay, this is my optimum bundle. So let's say that this is optimum bundle A. A is the optimum bundle under P1 and P2. Okay. Then I have another indifference curve, so which is tangent to the budget line with the new prices. Let's say that this is point B. Point B is the optimal bundle under the need prices. Okay, so let's say that this is Q1A, then the optimum bundle will be here. This point is Q1B, and this point is Q2B. Okay, this is Q2A. So as you can see here from my drawing, Q1B is greater than Q1A, and the difference between Q1B minus Q1A is the net effect. But if you would like to look at the substitution effect, what it tells us that, so you need to keep the ratio of the prices the same, okay, the new prices, but with the new prices, you want to be on the old indifference curve, okay? With the new prices, you want, or you need to be on the initial indifference curve. Şimdi burada tanımda şunu söylüyor bize. Price değişiyor. Tamam mı? Relative price değişiyor. Ben bu purchasing power'ındaki değişmeyi göz ardı etmek için şunu yapmak istiyorum. Yeni price'larla eski indifference curve'ümdeki kesişmeye bakmak istiyorum. Bakın burası çok önemli. Burayı anlamadıysanız bir daha tekrarlayacağım. Şimdi çizerken de biraz daha açık olmaya çalışacağım. So what I would like to do is basically with the new prices, I would like to be on my initial indifference curve. The reason is I would like to exclude, okay, the change coming from my increase in the purchasing power. Peki ben bunu nasıl yapabilirim? How I can do this? Since I am working with the new prices, I need to draw a parallel line, okay, to my new budget line, okay? So which means that draw a parallel line to new budget line, which is tangent to initial indifference curve. Let's draw that. Okay, so let me make the figure bigger here. So I would like to draw a parallel line, okay, and this is my initial budget, initial indifference curve. I would like to draw a parallel line, so which will intersect with the initial indifference curve. And I denote this as Q1. Then my substitution effect here is the substitution effect Q1S minus Q1. Burası açık mı? Birazdan bir örnek çözeceğim. Orada biraz daha açık olmasını sağlayacağız. But so please let me know if this is clear or not.
Ben bir şey sorabilir miyim?
Tabii ki.
Şimdi bu yeni çizdiğimiz budget line'da benim income'ım ya da price'lar değişmiş olmuyor mu?
That's an excellent question, okay? So my income definitely changes. Okay, so you mean this dashed one, right? So bu en son çizdiğimle ilgili.
Evet onu kastediyorum.
Tamam. Burada so our income definitely changes. Because my objective is basically so I'm not focusing on the income here. What I'm requiring is this for this dashed budget line, I need to use the new prices. So which is P2 and P1 price. Buradaki yeni çizdiğim, bu tırtıklı çizdiğim budget line'da yeni price'larımı kullanmam gerekiyor. Benim buradaki constraint'im, yapmak istediğim şey yeni price'larla initial utility'mi sağlamak. Şimdi initial utility neydi benim? Bu ilk indifference curve. So IC1 diyeyim. Buna da IC2 diyeyim. IC1 üzerinde olmak istiyorum. IC1 üzerinde olurken de sadece buna paralel, ilk mora çizdiğime paralel ve IC1 ile tangent olacak bir budget line çizmeye çalışıyorum. Buradaki çizdiğimden dolayı, hani içeriye doğru gittiğimden dolayı budget'ım değişmiş olacak tabii ki. Cevaplayabilir mi sorunu?
Evet hocam, anladım şimdi.
Tamam. Hani burada budget'ımız değişebilir. So of course, so here there is an imaginary budget. Okay, so the budget corresponding here not equal to y. Okay? Buradaki bizim budget'ımız y'ye equal değil. Çünkü y'ye equal olsaydı, normal budget'ımız equal olsaydı bu çizdiğimiz ana budget line üzerinde olurdu. Fakat orada değiliz. Ben burada sadece IC1 Initial Indifference Curve'ümün üzerinde olmak istiyorum. Yeni price'larla. Yeni price'lar bana sadece şu information'ı veriyor. Slope'una bak. Slope'una bak. Aynı yeni budget line'ın slope'uyla aynı olsun. Ve Initial Indifference Curve'ü kessin. Bu kadar. So what substitution effect is telling us that so you need to have a budget line independent of the income level, okay? It will be parallel to the final budget line, okay, with the new price. But what we require is we would like that budget line to be tangent to IC1, the initial indifference curve. Then the substitution effect comes from the difference between my initial optimal bundle and the imaginary optimal bundle that I'm coming from. Burada Q1 ise sadece bizim analizimizde gelen bir şey. Tamam mı? Hani aynı relativelikte, hani aynı utility sağlarken yeni price'larla aynı utility sağlayayım. O zaman benim optimum bundle'ım ne olur? Ona bakıyorum. Okay, so once we go through the example, so it will be much clear. Okay, but so if you have any other question, please do not hesitate to ask. Sorunuz var mı başka? So the income effect is the change in the quantity . of a good a consumer demands because of a change in income, holding prices constant. Okay, an increase in price reduces the consumer's buying power, purchasing power, effectively reducing the consumer's income or opportunity set and causing the consumer to buy less of at least some goods. Şimdi burada dikkat ederseniz hani bizim yapmak istediğimiz şey sadece bir ürünün fiyatını değiştiriyoruz. Income'ımızı değiştiriyoruz. Fakat burada definition'a baktığınızda birazcık karışık olabilir. Diyor ki buradaki income'ımızdaki change'in efektine bakıyoruz. Diyebilirsiniz ki benim income'ım değişmiyor. Ama effective income'ınız değişiyor. Sizin purchasing power'ınız değişiyor. Çünkü hani mesela fiyat arttı diyelim. Artık afford edebildiğiniz bazı ürünleri afford edemiyorsunuz. Çünkü budget line'ınız içeriye doğru kayıyor. If the price increases, even your income does not increase, now more goods are becoming affordable for you. So if the price decreases, okay, even your income does not change, more goods, more bundles become affordable for you. Okay, and we are basically saying that this is there is a change in the effective income. Okay, so here the effective change is income. And the income effect, so mathematically, is the difference between net effect and the substitution effect. So if we turn back to this question, here the net effect is Q1 minus Q1B minus Q1A. The substitution effect is this one, okay? Then the income effect is the following, okay? Q1B minus Q1A minus Q1S minus Q1A. If you do the math here, Q1A will cancel each other. And it is Q1B minus Q1S is the income effect. Okay, so on this graph, so here this is substitution effect. This portion is income effect. And all those portions is net effect. Şimdi bir soru yapalım. Oradan bir bakalım. Eğer bir sorunuz varsa daha da şey yaparız. Zaten çarşamba günü tekrardan bunun üzerinden biraz daha dikkatlice geçeceğiz. Farklı tipteki indifference curve'lerle daha da öğrenmeye çalışacağız. So let's solve a question, okay? And we will see that whether there is a problem. Okay, so in the substitution definition of the substitution effect and income effect. Okay, so we will have a very simple question here. Let's say that there's an example. We have a utility function given as 0.5 ln q1 plus 0.5 ln q2. And my initial income is given as 10, and the price of good 1 and good 2 are 1. Then it said that the price of good 1 increases to 2, and it asks that find income effect, substitution effect, and net effect. Okay, so essentially this is just a optimization problem. Okay, so we are just looking for the optimum bundle of the consumer for the initial prices and the net price. And in fact, the difference will be the net effect. Okay, so which means that we will first find the optimum bundles with initial price and final price. Okay, and this will give us net effect. So let's do that. So this is in fact the Cobb-Douglas utility function. Okay, so I'm just writing the Cobb-Douglas utility function. Instead of using q1 to the 0.5, q2 to the 0.5, I'm just using ln, logarithm here. Okay, so this is Cobb-Douglas. So what we know about Cobb-Douglas, okay, when we have Cobb-Douglas utility function, okay, so it is differentiable, and I can find the optimum bundle by looking at the tangency point here, and the tangency point is asking us to find the slope of the budget line, okay, and equalize it to the slope of the indifference curve at the optimum point. And the slope of the indifference curve is the margin rate of substitution. So what is the margin rate of substitution here? Margin rate of substitution is minus sign du over dq1 divided by du over dq2. And if you do the math here, you will have 0.5 over q1 divided by 0.5 over q2, which is q2 over q1. Burada ilk önce optimum bundle'ları bulmak istiyorum ben. Bu Cobb-Douglas smooth bir indifference curve olduğundan dolayı bu. Burada şey yapıyorum, margin rate of substitution'u price ratio'suna eşitliyorum. I already know that the ratio of the prices is -1. Okay, so which is minus P1 over P2. Then at the optimum bundle, I have the following relation. Q2 is always equal to Q1. Okay, here this is for the initial optimum bundle. Then I have my budget equation here, P1 Q1 plus P2 Q2 is equal to income. Then I will plug this value to here. P1 is 1, Q1 plus P2 is also 1 times Q1. My income level is 10. Then I will have Q1 is equal to 5 and Q2 is equal to 5. Any question? So this is the initial optimal bundle. Then let's try to find the final optimal bundle. Okay, so this is the initial one. For the final one, final optimum bundle, I use the same margin rate of substitution. Okay, so nothing changed with the margin rate of substitution for the final one because nothing happened to the indifference curve. Okay, they have the same shapes. Minus Q2 over Q1 is equal to, now the price of good 1 has increased to 2 minus 2 over 1, which means that now Q2 is equal to 2Q1. This is the relation between the Q2 and Q1 for the final optimal bundle. Then if I plug this to the budget equation, P1 prime, okay, the new price times Q1 plus P2 times Q2 is equal to Y. Here P1 prime is 2 times Q1 plus P2 is still 1 times Q2. Instead of Q2, I will write 2Q1 is equal to 10. Then I have Q1 is equal to 2.5. Doğru yaptık değil mi? Buraya kadar bir sıkıntı yok. Then the net effect, let's say this is initial, okay, and this is final. Then the net effect is Q1 final minus Q1 initial, which is 2.5 minus 5, which will be minus 2.5. So this is the net effect. Now I will decompose it to substitution effect and the income effect. Okay. Before that, let me draw this final optimum bundle and the initial optimum bundle on the graph. So initially, my budget line is this one. Okay, so it intersects here 10 and 10. Then the price of good 1 increases. Okay, the price of good 2 stays the same. Now it intersects here. So my indifference curves, okay, suppose that it is this point for the initial bundle. Okay, so this is my initial optimum bundle. This is 5 and 5. My final optimum bundle here, this will be, so sorry for my drawing. It will intersect here, and this point is 2.5, 5, so 2.5 and 5. And this part is the net effect. Now, suppose that we would like to look at the substitution effect here. So what does the substitution effect ask us is basically draw a budget line, okay, which is parallel to this green one, okay, this new budget line, and I want it to intersect with my initial indifference curve, okay, so which is basically so this dashed line, okay, and let's say this is the optimal one. Ben burada income seviyesinin ne olduğunu bilmeden yeni budget line'ıma paralel bir budget line çizmek istiyorum. Bu yeni paralel budget line'ımı bu dashed olarak yaptım. Bu tırtıklı olan olarak yaptım. Onu da benim initial indifference curve'ümde olmasını istiyorum. Sonra şu bulacağım nokta. This is the point, okay, that I'm looking for. So this difference, okay, so let's draw it with this part, okay. This will be the substitution effect. Okay, how do I find that? Okay, so for this optimum bundle, what I know is I can still use marginal rate of substitution is equal to the ratio of the price. Okay, but now since it is parallel to the final budget line, the rate for the ratio of the prices, I will use the new prices. Okay, so what is the new price? It is 2 and 1. And I already know the margin rate of substitution is minus Q2 over, sorry for that. Margin rate of substitution is minus Q2 over Q1 is equal to minus 2 over 1, so which gives us Q2 is equal to 2Q1. So for this imaginary optimum bundle, the relation between Q2 and Q1 will be Q2 is equal to 2Q1. Okay. Now I need the exact budget line here. Okay. So remember that. So we are still using, okay, P1 prime plus, so P1 prime times Q1 times plus P2 times Q2 is equal to Y tilde. Okay. So I don't know the exact value of this Y tilde. Then I cannot use this budget line here. So how can I find the exact values of this Q1 and Q2 for this substitution? Bunu nasıl bulabilirim? Elimde başka bir equation var mı? Do I have another equation here that I can use of? Hadi birazcık burada sizden ses alayım. Ben burada ne require ediyorum? Okay. So I want to be on this initial indifference curve. Do I know the exact value of the utility that I am getting this initial indifference curve? Bu initial indifference curve'ünden ne kadar utility aldım biliyor muyum?
Bulabiliriz. Q1 ve Q2'nun initial değerlerini biliyoruz. Onları utility function yerine koyarsak utility değerini buluruz.
Aynı. So since I know the exact values of the one point on this indifference curve, okay, so which is my initial optimum bundle. And I know the utility function, right? So my utility function is utility Q1, Q2 is equal to 0.5 ln Q1 plus 0.5 ln Q2. So I'm just plugging these values to the utility function, okay? So then utility 5 and 5 is giving me 0.5 times ln 5 plus 0.5 times ln 5. Then what will be the result? It will be ln 5. tam değerine bakmıyorum ben bu ln5'ın ne olduğunu. Sadece benim buradaki utility'm ln5. Since this bundle, okay, is also on this initial indifference curve, then the utility that I will get from this new bundle needs to be equal to ln5. And I know somewhat the relation between Q2 and Q1 here. So what I am looking for is 0.5 ln Q1 plus 0.5 ln Q2 is equal to ln 5. I can write 2Q1 here instead of ln 5. 0.5 ln Q1 plus 0.5 ln, instead of Q2, I am writing 2Q1 is equal to ln 5. Okay? Then if I have an ln function, ln a times b, I can write it as ln a plus ln b. Bunu biliyorsunuz değil mi? Bu kuralı. Which means that I can decompose this here into two parts. 0.5 ln Q1 plus 0.5 ln 2 plus ln Q1 is equal to ln 5. And if I do the math here, ln Q1 is equal to ln 5 minus 0.5 ln 2. Okay? If I do the math here, so do you know this rule? Okay, so A ln B is equal to ln B over A. Okay, I have this rule also. And ln A over B is equal to ln A minus ln B. Okay, so these are just the three rules that you need to know. Then if I work on the right hand side here, ln 5 is minus ln 2 to the 0.5, and ln 5 divided by 2 to the 0.5 is equal to ln Q1. Then what is left here is Q1 is equal to 5 over 2 to the 0.5. It is 5 over square root of 2. So that is the value of the Q1 at this point. Okay, so for this point, Q1 is equal to 5 over square root of 2. Then my substitution effect is 5 over square root of 2 minus 5, which will be 5 into the parentheses 1 minus square root of 2 divided by square root of 2. Okay, then my income effect. So this remaining part, this is the income effect. It will be the net effect minus substitution effect Here the net effect is, what was the net effect? It is 2.5 minus 5 minus the substitution effect is 5 times, or let me write it here, 5 over square root of 2 minus 5. And if I do the math here, 5 will cancel each other. It will be 2.5 minus 5 over square root of 2. This is income. Sorunuz var mı burada? Do you have any question? Right. So let me do one last thing, okay? Then I will dismiss the class. So what we have seen is so we are changing the price. Okay, change price. Then we have a net effect, and we decompose this net effect into two parts. Okay, substitution effect and income. Okay. So let's say that so we increase the price. Okay, price has increased. Okay. So what will be the sign of substitution effect? Do we observe a negative substitution effect or a positive substitution effect? Şimdi burada substitution effect dediğimizde sizin düşüneceğiniz şey law of demand'ı düşünmeniz gerekiyor. Law of demand ne diyor? Price'ımız artarsa demand'imiz azalır. Demand'imiz azaldığından dolayı da substitution efektimiz her zaman, eğer price'ımız artıyorsa, substitution effect will always be negative. And if the price increases, okay, what will be the income effect here? So it depends on what kind of goods that we are looking for. If the good is inferior or normal, so our answer will change. The price increases, okay? And for the inferior goods, okay, what will be the effect? Hadi bunu söyleyin. Inferior good'da pricing change'i nasıl etki ediyordu? Sizin price artı mı, income'ınız ne oldu? Hani relative income'ınız ne oldu onu düşünelim ilk önce. Azalır mı, artar mı? Hadi bak, bırakmayacağım yoksa. Bir ürün pahalılaştı, fiyatı arttı. Sizin income'ınız nasıl değişir? Artar mı, azalır mı? Azalır, değil mi? So when the price increases, okay, so your relative income, so your relative purchasing power will decrease. And if the good is inferior, okay, the decrease in income will have an effect just on the opposite side, okay? So which means that for the inferior effect, the income effect will be always positive. But for the normal goods, the income effect will be on the same direction. It will be always negative. Okay. Then the net effect. So the net effect will be the summation of the substitution and the income effect here. And your answer depends on whether the good is inferior good or the normal good. If the good is normal good, okay, the substitution effect is negative, the income effect is negative, then the net effect is also negative. But for the inferior good, the substitution effect is negative, the income effect is positive. So we are not sure whether it will be positive or negative. So it depends on the size of the income effect and to the size of the magnitude of the substitution effect. So for the inferior goods, so the result is ambiguous. Okay, so this is all for today. So we will continue with the same topic on Wednesday, and there will be a recitation on Wednesday. Okay, and your case will be solving the midterm question. Okay, on Wednesday. So which means that okay, so you will see the solutions for the midterm questions on Wednesday, and you will have also an assignment 3, okay, which is asking you to solve the midterm questions and to submit it on Thursday. Okay, so which will be a good favor for you. Çarşamba günü üyeleriniz midterm sorularını çözecek. Sonra ben derse devam edeceğim. Normal yaptığımız gibi. Assignment 3 sizin midterm question'ınızı sabit etmenizi istiyor. Burada midterm question'ın sonuçlarını görmüş olacaksınız zaten çarşamba günü. Zaten bizim buradaki amacımız hani solution'ları kendinizin öğrenmeniz. Hani bir insentif vermek istediğim solution'ları yapmanız için. O yüzden hiçbir sorun olmayacak. If you don't have any question, okay, I will stop today's class here right now. Do you have any question? Sorunuz var mı arkadaşlar?
Yok hocam, teşekkürler.
Tamam. İyi akşamlar dilerim herkese. Çarşamba
Evet.
günü görüşmek üzere.